Hi guys, so today I'm taking the time to kind of walk you guys through my startup journey and how I got this far in terms of the point where I figured out that I really did want to start up a company, and at the same time I want to focus on things like why did I start up in the field that I did, why did I choose edtech, why did I go down the route of choosing an app to solve a problem, how much research did I do, what were the triggering points, what were the issues that I faced. So like I said in the last video and the first video that I created, I want to focus on making sure this is as candid as possible. There's no preset script. Again, I do have around 8 points that I want to really cover, but apart from that, I don't have any particular notes or any particular knowledge of doing background research and then coming up and just reading out a script or following a script or protocol to follow. Right? I just want to answer the questions and make sure that it's really candid approach in terms of you guys understanding what I'm trying to say. And obviously, if you have questions, please do drop it in the comment section, and take this time to hit the subscribe button, because I think that helps in terms of the algorithm and sharing it with more people. The reason I set out to do this is to provide value to others and not just keep whatever I've learned within my just to myself. I want to make sure that I can share my knowledge with others and kind of help others through this journey as well. So I don't know everything, but I'm pretty sure that like we as a community, or when we're growing as a community, we can kind of bounce off of ideas of our friends or people that do know things, and we can direct people, or even if I went through a path, and I can kind of push those people to you and so on. Yeah, so let's get right to it. How did I get to the point where I wanted to start the company? This is a question that's always been asked, and why and how did I decide upon this? I've been always under the impression, and businesses should do, is kind of not just building a product or a service, but also helping communities in and around that they work with. So I've always felt that impact has to be created, and during just thinking about my general thought process of going into business, when I initially had the idea, I wanted to go into a management consultancy or a marketing agency, and that was my knowledge, and I was like, no, that's where I think I can thrive in, because I've been successful in marketing, and I've been successful in bringing companies and growing them digitally. There are ways in which that could work, but at the same time, I felt that the most impact that I can create is through knowledge transfer and to helping people, and find the right match and so on. So that's when it kind of clicked, where I was in the education space. I was seeing how educational companies were working within, like, inside out, and their approaches were basically to be focusing on something that's already been created, or using the current existing templates, or school, or the syllabus, and the curriculums that they follow. So it's very monotonous in terms of just take that, copy paste, and get tutors that can teach that, and kind of do that for as an extra help for students who are kind of struggling, or students who are trying to up their level. Whereas for me, it was more under the notion of when you're doing something outside of school, you've got to hit a pain point of trying to be able to solve a key problem for a particular consumer or a customer. So for me, I was trying to understand. So I started speaking to maybe some students, and my mom as well was always teaching maths, and she was tutoring maths through COVID as well. So I had that learning of trying to understand what are students actually looking for, and what exactly makes them work. Like, why are they searching for something outside of school, right? So the reason why students or even parents look for something outside of school is to break that barrier of just learning through the structured basis, right? They want something that's more personalized. But when they come out of school and they go into an organization which is kind of take like any edtech company or an educational company that's providing their services with another teacher, they're replicating the same thing, but just with a different set of students. So again, you're missing out on that one-to-one attention. So my basis on which I kind of tried to tailor make this whole system was making sure we match. And that's why I chose like the matchmaking model of just looking at Tinder, for example. What do they do best? They match you with the right person that you're kind of searching for, and you have a profile, you have a like or a dislike, and it's very simple to navigate through those things. So the same kind of thing, if you look at the core principle, you're trying to match with a tutor that matches your personal needs. And so I really went into that, and I was doing some research around that, and I knew that wasn't by creating a learning management solution, or it wasn't like creating a big system software that would build something like with AI and machine learning and all that. Let's keep it as simple as possible, but the most effective. It should be effective, right? So the point in which I was trying to work on is the effectiveness of the product or service that we're going to go into. So that's why, I mean, in terms of me choosing that business, was because I could provide a lot of value in all my learnings that I've done through the years, as well as I myself had that personal relationship of having the right tutor for certain subjects. I was an international student all my life. And I struggled in certain subjects which I didn't have personal attention. So again, when you look at that, I felt that was an area that had to be worked on, and that was the key point where I thought, okay, fine, this is where I'm going to impact, and I'm going to impact big by putting myself in that situation and kind of take my learnings, as well as find people who maybe had similar issues or had similar situations, and kind of that's how it grew up, right? And how much research did I go through? I mean, quite frankly, I had this idea brewing for 3 years before I had anything to do with actually looking at ways in which I could expand, or ways in which I could actually take this forward. So what I ended up doing was I worked with organizations or companies that were willing to help me in terms of developing a product and so on. I worked with a consulting company, and when I did work with a consulting company, they had the idea of doing things in-house. And I went through the whole process of scoping out a learning management system at that time. It was a whiteboarding plus learning management system. And this was completely different from what I was trying to do, but this was my initial idea, to go into like a whiteboarding system where you create a learning management system, and then you kind of create a progress tracker, and along with that you create a few places in which the students and the teachers can upload their assignments or correction patterns and syllabus, and you have things to follow, and you can create your own physical way of studying but online. And then kind of change that changed to an app, and I chose an app because in terms of research, like you look at students who are in places or in international communities, all of them currently have a phone. And so what's most accessible to them is a phone. So if they do want to look for someone, or look for a tutor, or look for someone who wants to teach them, they've got to do it on something that's a lot more accessible, not just a PC or a laptop, right? Whereas in the Asian side, you had a lot of parents intervening into the education. So parents would kind of do the groundwork of finding them the tutor or finding them the teacher. But I think in terms of education as a whole, it has to come down from the student, because the student is the person who's actually going to be studying and is at the heart of this whole process. So we wanted to give the power back to the students. So I wanted to create something that would give the power to the students to choose based on their personal preferences, whether you want a male teacher, female teacher, or whether you want a teacher who is from your native speaking country, or you want a teacher from the place that you're currently studying or staying, so you get to choose all these intricacies, and then you get to choose a tutor. So that's more useful than being told that this is your tutor and you have to study with them. And that's how I made sure that was an app, because I was under the impression that an app would kind of solve things and it would act as a companion for these students. And this companion would be best used if they were taking it from the app itself and using the app themselves. So they were downloading the app, they were selecting the tutors, and all they would have to do is to go to their parents to get the funding for the particular classes, or the sessions that they were going to study for. This was probably in 2017-ish that I had decided on the domain that I was going to go into and stuff. So in 2019, once I started developing this idea and it kept getting better and kept getting better, by 2020 I had the idea of doing things manually. So I was doing things on Google Sheets, on just paper, just manually mapping and just putting teachers and students together, and obviously earning a commission off of the students and teacher combinations that we were creating. And these kept continuing, and we had a lot to do with students and teachers just finding the right set of match. But at the same time, the results would come. They enjoyed their classes, and then you had some, good feedback. And obviously, this started off with my mom teaching maths, and then kind of just slowly developed from there into physics. Found some other teachers. We had another 3 to 4 teachers that we were using during COVID, and we were just continuously adding students. Very organically, right? With just known people, known circles, referrals, and so on. And when the idea came that, okay, fine, now this has to go to the next level, and that was the turning point of when I knew I was going to go into this like a full-time business role. And that was really when I set my foot into an MBA program, and I kind of started doing this initial groundwork of how to register and what we have to because I'd already done the market research, already knew in terms of the scope of the business and what I was going to do, and I knew who I was going to target and my target audience in terms of starting off with schools and kindergarten to 12, starting off with school students, and then working ourselves into engineering, and then just opening up the platform to anything. If you have the skill to teach, if you have the certification to teach, you can come on our platform, and students will get students for you, right? So you could teach music, you could teach art, you could teach any subject, and we want to be there for you to find students. So that's just creating that marketplace and making sure that we are the marketplace leaders for the education industry or the edtech industry. And we as a business unit, we stay in the software side, because we want to make sure that we're staying in the software side to keep and continually providing software, and just changing advancements in technology is really fast. So we want to keep and make sure that the education industry gets the software right then and there when it's required to increase personalized learning. And leveraging personalized learning is one of my biggest motto. During my MBA process, I was working with the student ventures. I worked with Enactus. I worked with another accelerator program, got a few funding for my idea and so on. So I had that initial investments and initial fundings that I got, grants and fundings that I got to help me kind of envision my idea, put it into picture, just put it into a scope, and kind of see the next steps and how it was going to develop. And once I started seeing things that this could actually work and this could actually take off, that's when I knew that I was going to start investing in a mobile application development. And initially I had the idea of creating the app by students for students. And that's basically using, programmers from uni and just master's level students who are currently studying development, in product development and just app dev. going into that area and kind of sourcing people who would be ready for an internship and so on, and kind of build a product through students, for students as well. But the only thing that kind of stopped me from doing that at that point was that if I were to go down that route of building an app by students, in terms of scope and in terms of the amount of time it was going to take, the time frame was just not suiting for me. I wanted to be in the market as quick as possible. So firstly, to be in the market as quick as possible, you need an influx of cash. And definitely you need an investment. Like, you need to get that initial investment, whether you're doing it by yourself, you're bootstrapping it, or you're getting someone to invest in your business or your idea. It depends. But you needed that initial investment and funding, right? So that's the tricky part. But I wanted to be in the market within a year or maximum a year. So I'd planned out 2023 was going to be our launch time, right? So during August, September, October, though, like during that time, I was already scoping out, who I'm going to work with, the developers I'm going to work with. I ended up selecting a company that was that I had sat with for understanding, in terms of development, how they're going to do in terms of the Android app and the iOS app. I wanted to make sure we were building both from scratch, in terms of building things in a way that we wanted to be built. So we had a scope of work. So I went in with a company that I felt that was best fitted or best suited for the role. And then they hired around 9 developers within their team to kind of go ahead and do the development and testing. The real turning point at that point, where I was looking at this business more full-time rather than a short-term thing of me just going in and helping and at the same time working my other jobs, is really when I was searching for jobs in the UK. And I was searching for jobs, and I really went to a lot of interviews. Like I remember there was a week when I went for 16 interviews, 16 to 17 interviews on that particular week. I remember calling home and saying, I've sat for these interviews, but none of them look very promising. And out of like half of those were kind of no second round, third round. I had a few final round interviews, no face-to-face meetings, and everything kind of fell apart. And I was like, oh, gosh, this is not working out for me. So, and I was like, rather than wasting so much time on my interviews and so on, I thought, why not just focus on my business, get some sales in, start working on finding leads and so on, and networking obviously, and then focusing on putting some effort in terms of building the app itself. So I went in full steam ahead in terms of just that's the time. I want to be done with this. I want to go ahead and just nail this out. And yes, and that's kind of how I was pushed into a corner, but it was a good corner that I was pushed into, and I had to decide, and I decided to go ahead with investing all my savings, and any money that was coming through and any money that I was saving up was for the business. In terms of challenges, I feel like the biggest challenges that I faced initially was just the registration process of the company. Registering the company as a legal entity is pretty simple. Whether you're doing it in India, in the UK, or in the States, it's pretty simple. So I initially wanted to do something that was economically viable to kind of do everything from India, because I wanted to help in the Indian ecosystem in terms of the startup ecosystem and so on. So that was my initial thinking and frame of mind in terms of if I did start a business, it had to give back to the Indian economy. But yes, although we still have the same aims and visions in terms of building the company and growing it from India and so on, the business unit kind of runs from the States. So and that's particularly because we had some regulatory issues in terms of just how money was coming in and going out, in terms of we're providing services, but our tutors are kind of freelancers, and we need payments to be going out, coming to one country, going out to another country, and that was going to happen in a larger scale. So let's say we had 10 countries that we were operating in, and 10 different tutors from different countries. So money coming in from another 10 countries because students would be in another country. And so the expansion level, like money coming in and money going out, is just in different parts of the world. So in terms of the legal restrictions on that, UK and India did not seem as the best fit solution in terms of like business viability. So that's when I ended up thinking, okay, fine, we've got to register in the States. So I got an agency that I was working with, and chose the agency. In finding the agency, find a trustable agency that works with you, helps you, and kind of walks through the processes, and you're able to open up your bank accounts. You're able to open up your company, not just your company, what type of company you want to register as. We're registered as an LLC Corp in Delaware, and it really depends on what exactly you want from it. There are risks between choosing like one way of registering and from the other, because taxation norms are different. Every state has its own way of working in the States. So go through an agency which is able to explain to you how these things work and how it's going to impact your business, and what you aim to do in terms of scalability wise, right? And the other reason why I thought the US was probably the best place was, if I were to look for funding, or even look into this education industry for in terms of scalability wise, if we did end up being successful and we wanted to bring on some investors, I think from the US market would be the best bet in terms of bringing on investors, because the startup ecosystem is a completely different area in the States. So I think putting all these ideas together, I thought it was best to find a way to work from the States, and that's how I kind of ended up and landed up in like registering in the States. And pretty much through this whole app process, like building the app, building that whiteboarding system, and putting everything in place, we wanted to ensure all the features that we launched were kind of stable. So we did spend a lot in terms of testing. So I think when you're building an app, the main thing that you got to focus on is, yes, you have the development of the app as a whole, and then testing of the app is probably the most expensive, and it's the most underrated thing, because you never know what problems are going to hit you until you use your product, and until you start running with few people on board, and actually stress testing it, and seeing if your system can handle those workloads and so on. So it's really important. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions and concerns on how you develop the app and what, I'm not like a very technical sound person, but in terms of I do know people that I've sat with and I've had discussions with, and I've understood how things work, for me to actually go into the next stage of being able to decide on certain improvements and decide on certain tech stacks to be used. So even just focusing on how we wanted to develop, even though I didn't have the technical knowledge, I was working with other people and trying to understand what sort of ways to focus on in terms of making sure that I can be effective and also bring out an effective product. So yeah, these are the main challenges that I've foreseen, and I never really had the vision of bringing on a big sales team and kind of doing a lot of cold calling and so on. So I didn't have that scope in business. So I didn't really think about it. And marketing I haven't really spent much on, because we're using a lot of the current customers, existing customers that we have, to bring on more customers. So we're trying to generate leads through that. But yes, obviously, once we're full-fledged, and because only the MVP is out in the market, we still have time to test and kind of do some improvements and so on before we completely go public to everyone, and kind of start bringing out people from everywhere. That's pretty much what I had planned for today. But if you do have any questions that you want to go through personally, like as you want to speak to me, please feel free to email me or LinkedIn. If you do connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm very active, and I'm happy to share my contact details, and then we can go from there. And I'm happy to help you guys if you are getting into the startup journey and you don't know what to do next. I've already helped a few people who have reached out to me, and that's my motive, right? Even if I can just help 1 or 2 people, I'm happy with it, because I don't think you have to be a big influencer to kind of start working with thousands of people. I think just taking one step at a time and working with smaller groups and working with people who have different mindset and different just outlook on things, it kind of helps me as well, because I'm able to learn from them as much as I'm able to provide to them as help as well. So I'm happy to help you guys. Please do subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Stay tuned. Take care.